Welcome to Porch on the Prairie. I'm Megan, and I live on a homestead with my husband and 4 small children in rural Minnesota. Today, I'll show you how I make a super simple, beginner-friendly cheddar cheese wheel. I do also have the full recipe on my blog at porchontheprairie.com. I pick up raw milk from a local micro dairy about 30 miles from where we live each week. Each week, I buy 3.5 to 5 gallons of milk, and I have done this for over 3 years. I've been learning all things raw milk, so when I finally have a cow of my own, I'm not overwhelmed with milk. Yesterday, I purchased 5 gallons, so today I'm using 2 gallons to make cheese. First, I shake in the cream and pour the milk into the large pot. For cheddar, fresh milk is best, so aim for milk that's no older than 1 to 2 days. This recipe had actually come with the cheese press I'd purchased a couple of years ago, and I was pretty surprised at how simple making cheddar can actually be. I'll link the press that I use and love in the description. Next, place the lid on the pot of milk and insert the thermometer to monitor the temperature. Place the pot of milk on the stove on medium-low heat to slowly bring the temperature up to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. I like to rinse my milk jars right away with warm water before loading them into the dishwasher to be sanitized. This prevents milkstone buildup on the jars, which can be a breeding ground for bacteria. While I wait for the milk to reach the appropriate temperature, I've decided to make one of my favorite raw milk treats. I load my jar with ice cubes, then fill the jar about 3/4 full of milk, and top it off with this super yummy strawberry matcha concentrate. It is so delicious and so refreshing, the perfect summer treat. Next, I grab my packet of starter culture, so that is ready. I like to order my cultures and supplies from the New England cheesemaking supply store. Once the milk reaches 86 degrees Fahrenheit, turn off the heat and mix in 1 packet of mesophilic starter culture. Just a quick note that there are different cultures for different types of cheese. Allow the starter culture to dissolve on the surface of the milk for a few minutes, and then stir the starter culture well into the milk. I like to turn off the heat on the stove at this point. Cover and allow the milk to sit or ripen undisturbed at 86 degrees Fahrenheit for about 45 minutes. While that sits, I like to get the rennet ready to go. Ideally, this should be done at least 20 minutes prior to adding it to the milk. It is important to follow the instructions on the rennet that is being used. So for this rennet, I am taking 10 teaspoons of purified water and then mixing in 1/2 teaspoon of the rennet. Stir well. A quick note here on rennet is that some people use rennet tablets. I've just always used the liquid rennet. I will link that in the description of this video as well. Typically, I use this little bit of wait time to tend to other kitchen needs, or I'll set a timer on my watch and come back after the 45-minute mark for the next step. Today, I have yogurt I need to deal with that's been straining, so I'm going to do that, and then I need to get a new batch of yogurt going in the Instant Pot, so I'll do that as well. I've shared my step-by-step for making the easiest raw milk yogurt in the prior video if you're interested in checking that out. My mom has actually requested a jar of Whey Caramel to add to her coffee, so I'm going to be using the whey from the yogurt to get that going too. Some of my favorite kitchen gadgets are ones that make raw milk managing so simple. This strainer really cuts down on the process of work that has to go into it because you just dump the yogurt and let it strain in the fridge until you're ready to deal with it. Likewise, I make all my yogurt in the Instant Pot, which is super simple, essentially a dump and go situation. Furthermore, this is the best slow cooker ever, and it's fairly hands-off when it comes to making my whey caramel. And of course, as I'm skimming the cream from the milk, I remembered I had an empty Ninja Creamy pint, so decided to get a container of raw milk vanilla ice cream ready for the freezer too. I also have a video on how I make my caramel and ice cream, if you're interested in that process. I did have a little extra ice cream batter, so I added that to yogurt molds for popsicles. Okay, so now be sure that the milk temperature is still at 86 degrees Fahrenheit and gently add in the diluted rennet. Stir the rennet into the milk using a gentle up and down motion for about 5 minutes. The rennet is what will form the curd. Cover the milk and let it sit undisturbed for 30 to 45 minutes until the curd shows a clean break. You will know if the curd is ready because the cuts will be super smooth and not jagged. I like to leave my long knife in. When I pull up on it, it's easy to tell if it is ready for cutting. Using a long knife, once the curds show a clean break, cut the curd into half-inch pieces or cubes. Be sure to cut the curd cubes all the way to the bottom of the pot. Stir gently to break the curds and allow them to set for 5 minutes. After they've set for about 5 minutes, slowly heat the curd on low heat to 102 degrees Fahrenheit. This step should take about 30 minutes or more, not less. Maintaining the 102 degree Fahrenheit temperature, continue to stir the warm curds as they reduce in size. This step should take about 15 minutes. As I'm stirring, you can see here there's now a clear distinction between the curds and the whey. Finally, it's time to strain the curds from the whey in a colander over the heavy pot. Place the lid back on the colander full of curds and let it sit for 45 to 60 minutes undisturbed. Mainly, I like to place the lid on to keep the cat out of it and, depending on the season, flies and Asian beetles. The plan was to save the whey as it has many uses on the homestead. However, I managed to dump a fair amount all over everything. Pro tip, don't make cheese when you've just cleaned your house. It will cause great frustration. And here I go again, still dumping whey everywhere. The whey can be stored in the fridge for later use, so that is what I will do with this little bit here. I'll continue straining any of the whey that I can off of the curd here, and then I will dump all of the curd into the colander to rest on the pot and continue to drain whey. So here I'm just trying to dump some of the excess whey off of the top of the curd. This is what the curd should look like strained from the whey, and now we wait another 45 minutes to an hour before advancing to the next step. I was wanting to get the cheese in the press before bed, so it still has more whey in the curd than I'd like, but that's okay. Get the press and cheesecloth ready. I love this press because it is so simple to use, and I can run the parts through the dishwasher. Typically, I like to flip the curd in the colander and let it continue to strain for another 30 minutes at least. That just helps it get to the consistency that I like it. However, like I said, I'm kind of on a time crunch here, so I'm going to keep moving along. After it's strained for at least 45 minutes, transfer the curd mass to a cutting board and cut the curd into 3-inch slices or strips. The texture of the curd should now be similar to that of raw chicken meat. Strain any additional whey from the heavy pot and place the slices back into the pot. Break the slices into 1/2-inch cubes and add 1 tablespoon of cheese salt and stir the curds with your hand. Be careful not to squeeze the curds during this process. I'm realizing here that it looks like way more than 1 tablespoon I'm adding, but I promise just 1 tablespoon is all you need. So, be sure that the cheese mold is lined with a cheesecloth and place the curds in the mold. It is best to get the cheesecloth as tight as you can in there rather than have it just all loosey-goosey. Add the mold back to the press and crank the handle until you feel resistance. Be sure to have a tray to catch the whey as it drains from the curd. I like to use a small little teacup plate. Per the instructions, it says to let it drain for 15 minutes in the press and then flip it over and press it again. However, I've found it to be much easier to let it drain for at least 24 hours, tightening it here and there, and then flip it. The instructions also say to allow the cheese to set at room temperature for 12 hours. Keep constant pressure on the cheese by checking the handle periodically and crank further. Again, I prefer to flip at closer to the 24-hour mark, and then I've actually found it to be way easier to remove the cheese from the cheesecloth and mold after about 5 days. So, what that means is once the cheese has been in the press for about 24 hours, I remove it, flip it over, and apply pressure. I let it sit in the press for about 5 days, and then I will remove the cheese from the mold and then carefully remove the cheesecloth. At this point, I wrap the cheese in a paper towel because, again, I live in an old farmhouse and I have a lot of critters and a cat that doesn't stay off the counter. I'll dry the cheese at room temperature for another 2 to 5 days until the cheese is dry to touch. I'll replace the paper towel daily to ensure it doesn't get too saturated and in turn keep the cheese wheel damp. At this point, the cheese is now ready to eat or wax once it has formed the natural rind, or the firm coating around the outside. To age cheese, store it at 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 to 12 months. The longer the cheese is aged, the sharper the flavor will be. Extra sharp cheddar cheese should be aged for closer to 12 months. Without aging the cheese through the aging process, the result will be a very mild cheddar cheese. Now what I've been doing here is cranking on the cheese to apply the pressure, and that will squeeze out extra whey, and then I dump the whey from the dish back into the pot just to discard it. Sometimes some whey will kind of make its way out of the top of the press, so I do like to soak that up with a paper towel, otherwise the cat will be after it. So I'll come back in a moment to show you how I flip the cheese at about the 24-ish hour mark. But in the meantime, we've finally gotten some warmer weather, and it's been so nice to be outside in the sunshine and to clean up some of the landscaping. So there's some whey pooled on the top of the press, so for the sake of reducing some of the mess, I like to soak that up in a paper towel first. Then, I simply loosen the mold and pull the cheese from the mold, flip it over, and then put it back in the mold and apply as much pressure as I can. This cheese is still fairly damp, so I'm not pulling the wheel from the cheesecloth because I don't want to mangle the wheel. Ideally, the wheel will turn out nice and smooth. Also, for the sake of the video, I did pull the wheel after another 24 hours, but like I had mentioned earlier, I prefer to let it sit for about 5 days before pulling it from the mold and the cheesecloth. The 5-day wait usually gives me a nice, smooth wheel of cheese and is much easier to pull from the cheesecloth. Either way, this cheese we will keep mild and let it air dry for another few days in the paper towel to form a natural rind. Then we'll probably eat it on homemade pizza. I have started aging cheese in a wine fridge, so maybe I'll share my process for that in another video. I will add that as a cheesemaker, you can't get freaked out by cheese sitting on the counter or by a little mold. The more you learn, the more you'll find it's a normal part of the cheese making process. Like I mentioned earlier, for the sake of the video, I did pull the cheese from the cheesecloth sooner than I typically do, and therefore I kind of mangled the shape of it. However, not a big deal. I will still follow my same process. I just won't age this cheese. Let me know in comments if you have any questions. Be sure to subscribe for more life on the homestead. Next, we plan to add more chicks to the farm, and we'll also be bringing home a number of additional honeybees. As always, thanks for being here.